The dust swirled across the Wyoming Territory Trail like angry ghosts as Virginia Holcomb stumbled forward, her strength ebbing with each desperate step. The year was 1879, and the harsh summer sun showed no mercy to a woman alone with a 3-month-old infant clutched to her chest. Her cracked lips moved in silent prayer as black spots danced before her eyes, her threadbare dress clinging to her fevered skin. When her knees finally buckled beneath her, Virginia curled her body protectively around little Emma, shielding her daughter from the fall. Virginia hadn't eaten in 2 days, saving the last of her meager provisions for the diluted milk mixture that kept Emma alive. Her husband Thomas had died of typhoid 3 weeks earlier in their failed homestead attempt near Laramie. With no means to survive alone and fearing the coming winter, Virginia had set out for Cheyenne where her distant cousin might take them in. But the journey had proven too arduous for her weakened state. As consciousness began to slip away, Virginia heard hoofbeats approaching through her haze. She tried to raise her head but couldn't summon the strength. Emma's weak cry was all that mattered now, a sound that pierced the heart of the man who had just rounded the bend. Heath Patterson pulled back on the reins of his dun quarter horse, dust billowing around him as he surveyed the fallen figure on the trail. At 26, he'd seen his share of death in the territories, but the sight of a woman collapsed with a bundle in her arms sent him leaping from the saddle faster than he'd ever moved. "Madam? Madam, can you hear me?" Heath knelt beside her, gently turning her face toward him. She was young, not much past 20, he guessed, with delicate features strained by hardship and dark hair matted with dust. The bundle in her arms squirmed, revealing a tiny red face. "Sweet Jesus," he muttered, immediately reaching for his canteen. With careful hands, he lifted the woman's head and trickled water between her parched lips. "Easy now, I've got you both." Virginia's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and clouded with fear. "Emma," she whispered, "please, my baby." "She's right here, madam, you're holding her tight." Heath spoke softly, the way he might to a spooked mare. He reached into his saddlebag and produced jerky and hardtack. "Can you eat something? You need strength." Virginia's trembling hands could barely accept the food. Heath helped her sit up against his knee, supporting her back as she managed small bites. "I'm Virginia Holcomb," she said, her voice barely audible. "My husband, he's gone. We were heading to Cheyenne." "Heath Patterson, madam. I work cattle for the Rockingham Ranch about 10 miles south." He looked down at the infant who had begun to fuss. "How old is your little one?" 3 months. I've nothing left for her." Tears filled Virginia's eyes as the terrible admission escaped her lips. Heath's weathered face softened. "Let me see what I can do." He returned to his horse and rummaged through his provisions, returning with a small cloth-wrapped bundle. "There's a nursing mother at the ranch. Cook packed some milk this morning for her young'un. It might help until we can get you somewhere proper." With expert hands that betrayed experience with young livestock if not human babies, Heath helped Virginia feed drops of milk to Emma, who accepted it with desperate eagerness. "We need to get you both to shelter," Heath said, looking at the sky. "Storm's coming and night won't be far behind." "Can you ride?" Virginia attempted to stand but swayed dangerously. Heath caught her, one arm supporting her while the other steadied the baby. "That's what I thought," he said, not unkindly. "I'll fashion a sling for the little one and you'll ride with me. The ranch is too far in your condition, but there's a line shack about 3 miles from here. We can shelter there tonight." Within minutes, Heath had created a secure sling for Emma from his spare shirt. He helped Virginia mount, then swung up behind her, one arm holding her steady against his chest, the other controlling the reins. "Lean back if you need to," he said, his voice close to her ear. "I won't let you fall." Virginia had no choice but to trust this stranger, this cowboy who had appeared like an answer to her desperate prayers. As they rode, Emma nestled between them, Virginia felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. The line shack was crude but sound, a single room with a small cast iron stove, a narrow bunk, and basic supplies. Heath helped Virginia and Emma inside, then tended to his horse before returning with his saddlebags and bedroll. "You and the baby take the bunk," he said, setting his bedroll on the floor. "I'll get a fire going." As warmth gradually filled the small space, Heath prepared a simple meal from his provisions. He watched Virginia eat slowly, her eyes never leaving her child. "My husband thought we could make a go of farming," she explained, the food giving her strength enough to speak. "Thomas was a dreamer, but the land was too harsh, the winters too long, when he took sick." Her voice trailed off. Heath nodded. "The territory breaks more dreams than it fulfills, madam. No shame in that." "And you?" Virginia asked. "What brought you out here?" Heath stoked the fire before answering. "Was raised in Missouri. Father had a small spread, but 5 sons meant not enough land to go around. I headed west after the war, been working cattle ever since." He didn't mention the nightmares that still plagued him, remnants of battles fought when he was barely 18. "Will your ranch boss mind you helping us?" Heath smiled. "Old man McKenna's bark is worse than his bite. Besides, we're between drives right now." He studied her face in the firelight. "What's waiting for you in Cheyenne?" "My cousin Alina. We've never been close, but she's all the family I have left." Virginia's voice held uncertainty. "I don't know if she'll take us in, but I had nowhere else to go." As night fell, Heath insisted Virginia take the bunk while he settled on the floor. Despite her exhaustion, Virginia found sleep elusive. The strange Cowboy's even breathing eventually lulled her, and she drifted off wondering at the twist of fate that had brought them together. Morning arrived with soft light filtering through the single window. Virginia awoke to find Heath already up, warming milk for Emma and frying bacon in a small skillet. "You're good with her," Virginia observed as Heath confidently held Emma while she stretched her stiff limbs. "Had 4 younger siblings," he explained with a slight smile. "Ma made sure we all knew how to tend babies." After they ate, Heath stepped outside to check the weather. When he returned, his expression was serious. "There's another storm building, bigger than yesterday's. We need to make a decision." Virginia clutched Emma tighter. "What do you mean?" "Cheyenne's still 30 miles off. In your condition, with the baby and bad weather coming, it's not a journey to take lightly." He sat across from her. "The ranch I work for, the Rockingham's closer. Mrs. McKenna's a fair woman. She'd give you shelter until you're stronger, maybe work in the house if you're willing." "I can't impose. It's not imposing if you work for your keep," Heath said firmly. "And it would give you time to contact your cousin, make proper arrangements." Virginia looked down at Emma's face. Her daughter deserved better than to die on the trail because of her mother's pride. "Thank you, Mr. Patterson. I accept your offer." Heath nodded, satisfaction evident in his eyes. "We should head out soon, beat the worst of the weather." The journey to the Rockingham took most of the day, with Heath leading his horse on foot for stretches to spare Virginia and Emma the jarring of a faster pace. True to his word, he walked beside them when the terrain allowed, telling stories of ranch life that painted a picture of hard work but fair treatment. "The McKennas lost their son in the war," Heath explained as they crested a rise that revealed the ranch buildings in the distance. "Never had other children. They're stern but decent folk." Virginia studied the sprawling ranch with trepidation. Smoke rose from several chimneys, and in the fading light she could make out bunkhouses, barns, and a substantial main house. Margaret McKenna proved to be exactly as Heath described, a practical woman in her 50s whose sharp eyes missed nothing, but whose heart retained kindness despite life's hardships. "So you've brought us strays, Patterson," she said, examining Virginia and Emma in the ranch house kitchen. "Yes, madam," Heath answered respectfully. "Mrs. Holcomb's husband passed recently. She was heading to Cheyenne when I found her collapsed on the trail." Margaret's expression softened slightly at the sight of Emma. "Well, we can't send a baby back out in this weather. Bessie just had her child too. She can help with milk." She turned to Virginia. "Can you cook?" "Yes, madam, and so, I managed our household in Laramie and before that in Illinois." Margaret nodded. "Good. We lost our housekeeper last month, married one of the hands and moved to Montana." You can take her room until you decide your next steps. Relief washed over Virginia's face. Thank you, Mrs. McKenna, I won't be a burden, see that you aren't, the older woman replied, but her tone lacked true harshness. She turned to Heath. Patterson, get yourself cleaned up. Supper's in an hour. In the days that followed, Virginia quickly proved her worth. Despite her initial weakness, she worked diligently in the kitchen and keeping house. Emma thrived with regular meals, and Virginia gained strength. Heath often found excuses to check on them, bringing small gifts, a wooden rattle he'd carved for Emma, wildflowers for Virginia's room, fresh berries he'd discovered while riding fence. 2 weeks after their arrival, Virginia sat on the ranch house porch in the evening light, Emma sleeping in a basket beside her. The sound of boots on the steps made her look up to find Heath approaching, his hat in his hands. Evening, Mrs. Holcomb. Mind if I join you? Please do. And I've told you to call me Virginia. He sat beside her, a respectful distance between them. Virginia, then, how are you settling in? Better than I could have hoped. Mrs. McKenna has been surprisingly kind. Heath nodded. She recognizes quality when she sees it. Says you're the best cook since her mother. Virginia felt a blush rise to her cheeks. High praise indeed. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Heath spoke again. Have you written your cousin in Cheyenne? Yes, I received her reply yesterday. Virginia's hands twisted in her lap. She says she can't take us in after all. Her husband's business is struggling and they've moved to a smaller place. Heath frowned. I'm sorry to hear that. Mrs. McKenna says I can stay through winter at least. She's offered fair wages. Virginia looked out at the darkening landscape. I never thought my life would come to this, dependent on the charity of strangers. It's not charity if you earn your keep, Heath echoed his earlier words, and you're not among strangers anymore. His hand moved tentatively toward hers but stopped short of touching it. Least, I hope we're not strangers now. Virginia looked at his weathered face, noticing for the first time the kindness in his hazel eyes, the gentle set of his mouth despite his rugged exterior. No, Mr. Patterson. Not strangers. Heath, he corrected softly. Heath, she agreed. As summer gave way to autumn, Virginia became indispensable to the ranch's operation. Beyond cooking and cleaning, she brought organization to the household accounts and helped nurse injured ranch hands. Emma grew plump and happy, becoming a favorite among the cowboys who brought her trinkets and made faces to hear her laugh. Heath found himself lingering in the kitchen when Virginia worked, offering to help with heavy tasks, their conversations growing longer and more personal. On Sundays, when work was lighter, he began taking Virginia and Emma on short rides around the ranch property, showing them hidden meadows and teaching Virginia about the cattle business. One crisp October afternoon, they rode to a ridge overlooking the ranch. The aspens blazed gold against the evergreens, and the vast sky stretched endlessly above them. It's beautiful, Virginia breathed, holding Emma securely as Heath helped them down from the horse. Most folks only see the hardship of ranch country, Heath said, spreading a blanket for them. They miss the beauty. They shared a simple lunch, and as Emma dozed between them, Heath gathered his courage. Virginia, I need to ask you something. She looked at him, noting the unusual seriousness in his expression. What is it? I've been offered a job. Foreman position on a ranch near Denver. Better pay, chance to save for my own place someday. He paused. I'm considering taking it. Virginia felt her heart sink unexpectedly. That's wonderful. When would you leave? After the first snow, likely. Heath's eyes held hers. Thing is, I've grown mighty fond of you and little Emma these past months. Virginia's breath caught. Heath, I know it's soon after losing your husband. I know you're still finding your way. He spoke quickly now, words tumbling out. But I've never met a woman with your strength and grace. I think about you both every waking minute. We've become fond of you too, Virginia admitted softly. Emma lights up when you enter a room. I'd like to court you proper, Virginia, not rushing anything but with clear intentions. Heath's voice was earnest. If you'd consider it, I'd like to take you and Emma with me to Denver. Not to live together unwed, he added hastily. I'd arrange proper accommodations for you both, but I can't bear the thought of leaving you behind. Virginia looked down at her sleeping daughter, then back at the man who had saved their lives that day on the trail, the man who had shown nothing but respect and kindness since. Thomas and I married very young, she said slowly. We barely knew each other, really. It was what our parents wanted. She touched Emma's soft hair. I care for you, Heath, more than I expected to care for anyone again, but I need to be certain for Emma's sake as much as mine. Heath nodded. I understand. I'm not asking for an answer today, just asking you to think about it. I will, she promised. The first snow came earlier than expected that year. By mid-November, the ranch was blanketed in white, the cattle brought in close, and preparations for winter in full swing. Heath's departure date approached, and though he and Virginia had spent every available moment together, she had yet to give him an answer. 3 days before Heath was scheduled to leave, a terrible accident occurred. A young ranch hand was thrown from his horse while checking fences in a snowstorm. Heath and 2 others rode out to search when he didn't return, finding him badly injured and barely conscious. Virginia spent hours helping Mrs. McKenna tend to the boy's broken leg and cracked ribs. When she finally emerged from the sickroom, exhausted, she found Heath waiting in the kitchen, his face etched with worry. How is he? Heath asked. Sleeping now. Mrs. McKenna thinks he'll recover, but it will take time. Virginia sank into a chair. You saved his life, bringing him in through that storm. Heath shook his head. Any of the boys would have done the same. But it was you who found him, you who carried him the last mile when his horse went lame. Virginia studied his face, the face that had become so dear to her. You're a good man, Heath Patterson. He sat across from her, taking her hands in his. Virginia, I need to know. Denver's waiting, but I won't go without an answer. Virginia took a deep breath. When Thomas died, I thought my life was over. I saw nothing but struggle ahead for Emma and me. She squeezed his hands. Then you found us on that trail and everything changed. Is that a yes? Hope filled his voice. It's a yes, but with conditions, Virginia said firmly. I won't marry again without true partnership. I need to know we're building something together, not just me following where you lead. Heath's face broke into a wide smile. That's exactly what I want too, a true partnership. He hesitated. There's something else. I didn't want to mention it until I was sure of your feelings, but I've been in talks with Mr. McKenna. Instead of Denver, he's offered to sell me a parcel of Rockingham land, the eastern section with the creek. I'd have to work 5 years for reduced wages to pay it off, but then it would be ours. Virginia's eyes widened. Ours, if you'll have me. We could build something here, Virginia, something that would be Emma's legacy someday. Tears filled Virginia's eyes. You'd give up the Denver position in a heartbeat. This is home now because you and Emma are here. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple silver band. It was my mother's. I've been carrying it since that day on the ridge. Virginia looked at the ring, then back at Heath's face. All the doubt and fear of the past months seemed to melt away. This wasn't the desperate choice of a woman with no options, it was a beginning chosen with clear eyes and an open heart. Yes, she said simply. Yes to all of it. They were married on Christmas Eve in the ranch house parlor, with the McKennas as witnesses and Emma cooing in Mrs. McKenna's arms. The ceremony was simple, but Virginia wore wildflowers in her hair, a reminder of those first healing weeks at the ranch, and Heath's hands trembled as he placed the ring on her finger. That night, as snow fell softly outside the small cabin the ranch hands had helped prepare for them on their future property, Virginia and Heath began their life together with tender passion and whispered promises. Spring came early the following year, bringing with it new calves, green grass, and the foundation of their permanent home. Virginia often thought of that desperate day on the trail, marveling at how close she had come to losing everything, only to find a love stronger than she could have imagined. On a warm June afternoon, 5 years after Heath had first found Virginia collapsed on the trail, they stood together on the porch of their completed home. The ranch was modest compared to the Rockingham, but it was theirs, paid for in full with hard work and determination. Emma, now 5 and full of curiosity, chased butterflies in the yard while her 2-year-old brother Henry toddled after her. Virginia leaned against Heath's solid chest, his arms around her expanding waistline where their 3rd child grew. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if you hadn't found us that day?" she asked softly. Heath tightened his arms around her. "Every day. But I believe some things are meant to be, Virginia. I was supposed to take a different trail that day, but something led me to you." Virginia turned in his embrace, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. "I'm glad it did." From the yard, Emma's voice called out, "Papa, come see what Henry found." Heath smiled at his wife. "Duty calls, Mrs. Patterson." As they walked hand in hand toward their children, Virginia felt complete. The journey that had begun in desperation had led to this, a family built on love, respect, and the steadfast commitment of a cowboy who had once walked beside them when they needed it most. The years continued to unfold with the rhythm of ranch life. The Patterson Ranch prospered, eventually expanding to include prime grazing land purchased from neighboring properties. Heath's reputation for fair dealing and quality stock spread throughout the territory, while Virginia's keen business sense helped them weather the inevitable hard times. Emma grew into a confident young woman with her mother's strength and her adoptive father's kindness. Though Heath was not her biological father, the bond between them was unbreakable. He had taught her to ride, to read the weather, to respect the land. Henry followed in his father's footsteps, showing an early aptitude for working with horses. Their youngest, Catherine, born that 3rd winter, combined her mother's intelligence with a fierce independence that both challenged and delighted her parents. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Heath surprised Virginia with a trip to San Francisco, a journey neither had ever imagined making. They stood together on the Pacific shore, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson. "Was it worth it?" Heath asked suddenly. "All the hardship, the struggles we've faced." Virginia looked up at the face she had loved for so long, now etched with lines of experience but still handsome, still kind. "Every moment," she answered without hesitation. "Even the darkest ones led us here." Heath pulled her close, his voice rough with emotion. "That day I found you on the trail, I thought I was saving you. I never realized you were saving me too." As they returned home to their thriving ranch and growing children, Virginia reflected on life's unexpected turns. A desperate collapse on a dusty trail had led to this full and beautiful life proof that sometimes the end of one journey is merely the beginning of another, far greater one. And in the years that followed, whenever travelers passed through their land, the Pattersons made it a point to offer food, shelter, and kindness. For they, better than most, understood how a single act of compassion could change everything, how the simple decision to walk beside someone in their darkest hour could lead to a lifetime of love.